5,000. And this is a scripture that we're very familiar with. And you know what? And I've normally read it like in Matthew or Mark, but like when I went into John, you know, it really brought out a part to me about the boy, the lad. Because for so often we hear, well, Jesus fed the 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves. But then the realization was that a boy had that. His disciples didn't have it. And you got to think about something, it was 5,000 people. So when he said, go ask them what they have, let's see, what do we have? Out of 5,000 people, one person had something they took up something from. And it was a boy, a lad. So to frame this up, this is right after the death of John the Baptist. Okay, so depending on where, because this is the only miracle that is in every single gospel, all 4 gospels. The only miracle that's spoken of in all 4. So depending on where you read this, it'll have a little different spin on it. But I want to use John 6 though. So the disciples are coming to him to tell him about John the Baptist being killed, and he's being pressed about by the people. He's being pulled on. He's giving out. And so let's start at verse 2 of chapter 6. And a great multitude followed him because they saw his miracles, which he did on them that were diseased. And Jesus went up into a mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. And the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was nigh. Here we go, verse 5. When Jesus then lifted up his eyes and saw a great company come unto him, he said unto Philip, when shall we buy bread that these may eat? And this he said to prove him. I want you to get this. It's the way that I went to God this week after I got my mind stirred up. And it was a place where he's telling Philip, he was like, okay, so it's a conversation going on between him and Philip. He sees these people coming, and he's like, so where should we go buy bread? Now, understanding the text and knowing where they were in the middle of the desert. Not a place like, you think about the desert nowadays, if we were in Nevada, it's not a mall out there. There's nothing out there to go pick up a food store, to go grab food. He said, so where should we get bread? And it's something how he said that to him to prove something. Philip answered in 7 and said, 200 penny worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. So if you brought that into layman's terms, the way he said it, it was like, even 250 like pennies, like basically saying a penny was a day's wage. So 250 days of working, the money that would come from that wouldn't be enough to feed all of these people. Remember what I was saying before. Do we have enough? And then Pastor Leon said, we have enough. Now prepare for your miracle. So he says this. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, saith unto him, there is a lad here, there is a boy here, which hath 5 barley loaves, 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many people? The miracle is already in that, like I said, because he asked Philip. Now, I want to do this. I want to stop there, and I want to look at what was said in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I have it on my paper here, so you don't have to turn to it. Because the response of the disciples is key here. Here is the thing that needs to be picked up out of all of this. The response. Because the response, it can either create a freedom, or your response can lock you into a mental paralysis. And I want you to really get this thing. And I want you to see how that mental paralysis can come about, how that stuck point, how that when you see it, like I was saying to God, like, I've done this, but I don't see this. Because basically what the disciples and even Philip said was, you're asking something that you have an expectation that's not even possible to fulfill. I'm asking God through the week, I've done these things, but I don't see that flood and coming out of the storehouse. So Philip says, 250 days worth of money wouldn't pay for the food for these folks. Why would you, basically saying, why would you ask me that? In Matthew, it says this, and when it was evening, his disciples came to him saying, get this is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals. In Mark, it says this, send them away that they may go into the country round about and go into the villages and buy themselves bread. For they have not to eat, they have nothing to eat. In Luke, it says this, but he said unto them, give ye them to eat. And they said, we have no more but 5 loaves, 2 fishes. We should go and buy meat for all these people. So they ended it with a question, like I was ending my thoughts concerning what was said in the question. So we should have enough to give these people? God began to deal with me on those responses in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and ultimately in John when they singled out Philip to answer. So you look at the group's answer, and then you looked at an individual's answer, which was Philip. They all came together to be the same type of answer. But God began to show me that these answers were developed over time because of the way that things had been seen, the way that you view things. And this is what he was sharing with me. He was like, you're answering in the same way. The things to point out, this is a desert place. When you think of desert, you think about a dry, desolate place. You think about a place of no resources, nowhere to get reinvigorated, nowhere to be refreshed, nowhere to be renewed. So they're coming to Jesus as if to say, Jesus looks up and sees this company of people coming towards him. And he says to them, give them food to eat. They knew that they had not prepared, because the thing about it is this. He said, give them something to eat. Give them food to eat. Meaning this, there is already food here. Because remember, it said Jesus was asking Philip to prove this. Prove something. What was he proving? There was one in the midst of that 5,000 that was prepared. There was one in preparation. I don't know if it was his mother. I don't know if it was his father. I don't know if it was in his heart to get up that morning. But something or someone or himself, he sat and put a lunch together. 2 fish, 5 loaves. He prepared, knowing they're in a desert place. I'm going out. I got a need. I know Jesus is out there. I'm going to follow him to get what I need from him. But whoa, I'm going to do my due diligence and bring with me what's needed so that as I go on the journey, I will not get weary. I will not fall faint. I will not go of hunger. Everything I need will be with me because I am taking it with me. The beautiful part of that is this. In that lad, that boy and his family, whoever, the preparation that allowed him to be present with that, it was the releasing of a miracle, not only for him, but it was a releasing of a miracle for 5,000. And like I said, the miracle that was spoken of in all 4 Gospels. And God began to talk to me more and more throughout the week about the mindset and not having a mindset that's stuck, that's paralyzed, a mindset of paralysis. And he said it comes from the thought that, hey, this is a desert place. It's like my response is, okay, I hear what you're saying, God. I know what Malachi 3 said. I know what the promise is, but at the same time, this is a desert place. Why would I expect from this place that which you've already spoken? Just like God said, I'm here to prove to you it's present. If I could just take out of you what God molded in me through this scripture when he said, what are you going to feed them? And he said, more than what are you going to feed them? Then and as soon as he said, what are you going to feed them? They begin to give excuse after excuse It's dry here. Time has passed. I mean, just like in real life, over time, you can end up forgetting those things that God has already done for you. Time has passed. Like many people, these people have been here long enough. Aren't you tired of praying for them? Aren't you tired? Matter of fact, why don't we just send them on to find their own food? I want you to get the understanding of the spirit that they were, because it was almost as if they were challenging God the same way I was. To say, you know what, I've done these things and I don't see this. And you're asking to do these things, but I don't see it present. And he said, you know what? It's the least of them that carries the very miracle that you need, but you need to open your eyes. And it's something. I'm trying to look at this picture and say, okay, it's 12, disciples, and you got 5,000 people. And then they begin to scan this land and try to see. He said, basically said, go see what you have. Like, I already know what it is. You go see what you have because you didn't bring it with you. That's why you're coming to me saying it's late. We're in the desert. Let them go find their own victuals. That's why you're saying it. You would have thought that those 12 knew what this thing was about and that they would have brought with them. What do you have? Well, I got 3 fish. He's got 5 over here. He got 6. They said, hey, it's a boy here. Out of 5,000. There's a lad here. There was one that prepared. There was one that believed enough to bring what he needed to say this. If I got to stay here with him for a week, I got my food with me and I'm not going anywhere until I get what I need to get from him. He does the miracle. And here's the thing. Here is what God showed me for myself. And I'm actually done now because I just wanted to impart this thought. Prepare yourself for the miracle. Because here's the thing. Just like in Malachi 3. So you bring it to the storehouse and you watch me send out the flood. And it'll basically be so much, you won't even be able to contain what I'm going to send to you. So what happened at the end of these? He breaks it, blesses it, breaks it, and gives it to the disciples. Everyone eats until they're full. Get this, everybody else got full. And if you look in the Hebrew, it says like glutton, like overly stuffed from what this young man who was prepared brought to the scene. He then says, you know what? Do me a favor. Go around, collect whatever's left over because we don't want anything to be wasted. And that's the thing, that's what God just like, poof, just opened it up for me. He was like, there is nothing wasted. Nothing will be wasted. If I spoke it, if I stated it, if I said it, it is more than true. But it's all based in your ability to prepare and to be ready. So he began to show me. I'm going back to my story now. I've already went into the word. I've given you the scripture. Going back to me. As I began to open myself before him, I'm like, okay, thank you. You're showing me that you have done great things for me. But then he began to show me the key to all of it. He said, listen, it's not in what you see, because that's what the disciples were basing things off of. You know why? They knew that they didn't have anything with them. So they looked around themselves and was like, we don't have anything. And you're asking us to give up something that we don't have. I don't care what you look at when you look in your bank account. I don't care what you look at when a bill comes in the mail. I don't care what you look at anywhere around you. Know this, if you are faithful to God, if you are faithful to prepare, if you are faithful to make sure that when he says, what are we going to give them? Meaning, Pastor Walter calls, hey, we need somebody on assignment to cut the grass. Hey, I'll be the first one I'll do it. Someone says, we're going to go out here and do a blood drive. I'll be the first to do